get started, I am going to be marinating some chicken. Here I have some diced chicken thighs. This is around 6 ounces of chicken thighs. Normally in this recipe I use 8 ounces or half a pound of chicken. Today I only used 2 pieces of chicken thighs that came out to around 6 ounces. So I'm going to make a char siu marinade. So I'm starting off with 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. Next, I will be using 1 tablespoon of ketchup. Now, you can definitely change the ratio of these ingredients to suit your preference and taste, but this is a good place to start. Now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of honey. Here I have 1 tablespoon of cooking rice wine. You can use white wine, and if you don't have any wines to use, you can use a little bit of vinegar. I'm also going to be adding some 5-spice seasoning and white pepper. Here I have 1/8 teaspoon, but ultimately I doubled it to add 1/4 teaspoon of Chinese 5-spice powder and 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper. Now I'm just going to combine and mix all of the ingredients together, and you can allow this to marinate overnight. I'm actually just going to let it marinate for around 1.5 hours. Okay, so next I'm going to season and marinate my ground pork. Here I have 8 ounces of ground pork. This is a leaner side of ground pork. You could also substitute this with ground chicken, ground turkey if you don't want pork. Now I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of minced fresh ginger and 1 garlic clove minced right into the meat. I am also going to be adding the whites of scallion. I basically used 2 scallion stalks and just minced it, and I separated the whites from the green tops. So I'm adding around 1 tablespoon of the whites into the ground pork mixture. Next, I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper. If you don't have white pepper, just use black, that's fine. I'm also going to be adding 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. I'm also going to be adding 1 tablespoon of rice wine and 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. You can adjust the saltiness in this marinade by just using less soy sauce or a low sodium option. Now I am just going to give this a good mix and combine everything well and allow it to just marinate for at least 1 hour. Again, if you want to prepare this ahead of time and do it the night before, that works too. Next, I'm going to be using Napa cabbage. Basically, I've taken the leaves apart and trimmed them a bit and gave it a good rinse. This is 1.5 pounds of Napa cabbage, and I am going to chop the stems and separate the leaves and chop that and cook it separately. So here are the leaves, and the stem part, I'm going to cook that longer, so that's why I wanted to separate it, and I'll show you how I do that here in a minute. Okay, so here I have a pan preheating. I have a little bit of oil in here, maybe around 1 tablespoon. And now I'm going to brown and cook my ground pork first. So ultimately what I'm doing is basically sauteing and cooking the filling of this egg roll. And it's really simple. I'm going to cook it in stages. You might be thinking, wouldn't it be easier to just cook the ground pork and the chicken together? But they kind of have 2 different flavor profiles, and I kind of want to keep it that way. But you can do what's convenient for you. So my ground pork is already browned and cooked through, so I'm just going to remove it from the pan. And as you can see, there is tons of flavor in the brown bits at the bottom of the pan. Don't wash that, leave that in. I'll get to that in a second. Okay, now I'm going to start sauteing my Napa cabbage. Here I'm adding a little bit more oil, and then I'm going to start by sauteing the chopped stems of the Napa cabbage. I want to give those a head start so they can soften first before adding the tender leaves. Here I'm going to be adding probably around 2 tablespoons of the whites of a scallion. This will also just add another layer of flavor to this. And now I'm going to add those chopped stems. Again, I'm going to be cooking these out for around 3 minutes before I add the rest of the Napa cabbage. This actually gives the egg roll texture, and you definitely can fill your egg roll with whatever veggies you like. Braised vegetables, bean sprouts, julienne carrot. I know I've seen some people use a bag of the coleslaw, like the fresh coleslaw mixes, and saute that, which is basically cabbage and carrot together. You could add white onion to this. Right now I'm going to add probably around a half teaspoon, or maybe somewhere between a 1/4 teaspoon and a half teaspoon of salt, and this is going to help sweat out the Napa cabbage. You want to make sure you saute all of the ingredients to rid of any water. The less water you have going into your egg roll filling, the better off you will be. It'll maintain a crunch better. So that's what I'm doing here. And as you can see, once I added the salt to the Napa cabbage, it starts to sweat out any water content, and it starts to pick up the fond at the bottom of the pan. This is exactly what I wanted to do. So I have been sauteing that for around 3 to 5 minutes. Now I'm going to add the rest of the Napa cabbage, which are the leaf tops. And I'm going to give this a saute for around another minute, basically until everything's wilted and sauteed well. By the way, I've been making this recipe for these egg rolls for quite some time. The resource I used for this recipe is an old YouTube video of basically someone filming their mother how to make egg rolls. And I can't even tell you the name of the YouTube channel because I think it's just someone's random YouTube account from long ago. I will leave the link to that video. I just love it. It's one of my favorite YouTube videos as far as, and it's not even a recipe, it's just someone filming their mom making egg rolls. It's really cool. Anyways, I will leave that link below this video. Okay, so basically I've added some oil, continued to heat the pan, and now I am going to cook my marinated chicken thighs. This is going to basically mimic Chinese barbecue. You can use pork. I like to use chicken, and it is done. So I'm going to remove this from the pan and add it to the rest of my ingredients. And of course, in hindsight, I realized I probably should have just added all the ingredients to this pan and mixed it together, but just to give you an idea of how everything looks. So now I'm just going to combine it well. And pretty much that's it. Now again, if you want different veggies or a different type of meat in this, go for it. But this is my favorite combination. And again, I got this idea from that YouTube video I saw long ago, and I've just been making it this way ever since. Okay, so that is combined well, and I'm going to allow it to come to room temperature. So once it's room temperature, I'm going to start assembling these egg rolls. Here I have my filling. I have 1 large egg scrambled, and then I am using these egg roll spring roll wrappers. This is 16 ounces. To make a dozen, I'm probably only going to use around 8 ounces or half of this package. And these are the square ones. I think they have round ones as well, but I always end up getting these. So basically to do this, you're going to wrap it like a burrito. I'm using around 3 tablespoons of filling, like 3 heaping tablespoons of this filling right in the center. And again, this will give you 12. By the way, my husband ate a scoop of this filling off camera, so I might not get a dozen, but we shall see. Okay, so now I'm just going to tuck in 2 sides and then take the side closest to me, roll it over, and then give it a pull back. That will tighten the roll, and then just make sure you're tucking in the sides as you finish out the roll. And once you get to that corner, you're going to take your egg wash, and this is what's going to seal the egg roll. You just give it a light coating of that egg wash and then finish the roll, and that is it. And I like to place these seam side down on my pan, and just so it doesn't stick to what you're putting it on, you can sprinkle some cornstarch on the bottom so that it doesn't stick when you're ready to fry it, because sometimes I find the dough will just sit there and kind of get sticky and stick to whatever you have these egg rolls sitting on, so bear that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to keep making these egg rolls and I'm going to speed things up a bit. Okay, so here I have all of my egg rolls rolled out. They are not perfect, but it'll do. And I didn't quite get a dozen, but the recipe that I will put below the description of this video definitely gives you a dozen egg rolls. So I have oil preheating. I just put probably a ½ inch of oil at the bottom of this 10-inch pan, and I am going to be frying 4 egg rolls at a time. And you want to make sure your fry oil comes up to at least 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I am going to be frying these egg rolls between 3 to 5 minutes. Basically, everything's cooked. You just want to fry the wrapper on the exterior until it's a deep golden brown color. Now, I will say this, if you have your fry temperature too hot, your egg rolls are going to brown on the outside part of the egg roll, but the inside wrapper will stay raw. So that's kind of a tricky thing. And also, if you find that your oil is splattering too much, it's probably because liquid is coming out of the egg roll. So that's another thing to watch for. So anyways, 3 to 5 minutes for these egg rolls. And I had to move my camera back because, as you can see, some of that liquid is popping in the hot oil. But it's okay, it happens. So I'm just going to give these a turn and just make sure that they're brown on all sides. Again, somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes, maybe more closer to 5. You just want to make sure that they cook all the way through as far as the wrapper. Okay, so I managed to survive through the frying of these egg rolls and they look perfect. They are a perfect color. The texture is going to be crunchy and crispy. But in the meantime, I am going to make a duck sauce, which is one of my favorite sauces to dunk egg rolls in. You know, those little orange packets they give you with the soy sauce? So yeah, here I literally have the tiniest amount of oil in a pan, a non-stick pan by the way, and I'm adding a little bit of fresh ginger. Ultimately, I added a ½ teaspoon of crushed minced ginger. You can add more or less, it's up to you. Next, I'm going to be adding a ½ cup of apricot preserve. You could also use peach preserve or even pineapple, but I'm using apricot. Why? Because if you get those little orange packets that you get when you order egg rolls, if you turn it around, it has apricot preserve in it. So that's why I like to use it. And this recipe is really super easy. It's not difficult at all. I'm not really adding any secret ingredients here. I basically came up with this by looking at that packet with things that I had in my pantry. Now I'm going to add a ½ cup of water, give that a mix, and then I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. That is going to give it that soury punch that you want in a good sweet and sour sauce. And if you find that you want it less sour, then maybe start with 2 teaspoons. And if you want it more, then go up a 1/4 teaspoon. Basically, you are going to find the happy ratio of these ingredients. So I allowed this to simmer for around a minute, just at a gentle simmer, and that is it. This sauce is done. It's super easy, and it goes great with these egg rolls. And now for the taste test. Let's give it a good dunk in this duck sauce and hear that crunch. It is seriously so crunchy and delicious. And another thing that we like to do is actually take some of this duck sauce and pour soy sauce right in the center and just mix it up for that sweet, sour, and salty perfect bite. And I'm going to go ahead and have my husband take another bite so I can show you what the inside looks like. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.